Hey, everybody. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Thank you so much for listening in. Steve Ankerstar here. We're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, but I will also say it's the one I know the least about within the industry is healthcare. Right. I know my own personal experience. I know exactly what I've helped clients with. But if you're outside of something I've specifically helped with, this is more of an awareness presentation versus necessarily answering everything you need to know about healthcare. So thanks so much for listening in online. Thanks for those folks that came out. And here's what we're going to talk about is your network itself. You probably understand that at least to a certain extent. You're going to talk about healthcare during various stages of your life, right? Because it's different when you're young, it's different when you're middle age, right? And then when you get older, obviously different there. We're going to talk about health savings accounts, which again are the triple tax advantaged. It's the best vehicle out there to be able to save money, but you have to use it towards qualified medical expenses across the board. There are other options if you end up with too much in your HSA, but we do HSAs for folks and we invest them. We can invest them aggressively, so it allows you to build a larger nest egg for when you do need it. We're going to talk about the Medicare transition and long-term care. There are lots of opinions here. You get mine. Okay, there are definitely differing opinions. If you watch CNBC, Fox, CNN, anything where the older audience watches, you will be marketed to endlessly for these sorts of things. I'm telling you, take that stuff with a grain of salt, realize it is marketing. And then we will, of course, get into the future of healthcare, which I'll give you my opinion, right? But I can't answer something that detailed. But we'll talk about the challenges that are out there. Standard disclaimer, you can pause that and read it. It's my opinions only for this presentation. Okay. As far as planning your healthcare journey, I like to say this all the time, wherever you are in the journey, that once you reach financial independence, right, you have to kind of work your butt off, get to financial independence. But once you're there, the only two things that matter after you're financially independent are health and wealth. Obviously, wealth is the numbers behind it all. And then health, incorporates a lot of things. It could not just medical health, physical health, right? But it could be spiritual health, relationship health, family health. Lots of things play into that. This is specifically talking about the medical side of that. Our responsibility as fiduciaries is we look beyond your investments to make sure that you have other protections in place. We are going to talk about whether or not you need long-term care insurance tonight, right? Everybody's situation's different. We can also model in, if you have a family history of, folks either passing away early or living till 110 or having major healthcare issues, we can take your assumptions, put it into our software and kind of model it out to let you know where you stand financially. It's very helpful. And then, of course, this proactive planning, we try to get in front of something ending up in your retirement that causes a disaster, right? That's what we're trying to avoid out there. Okay, you probably know all of this. You're going to have your primary care physician. You're going to have specialists. You're going to have key contacts. And then you have other people that you may not necessarily think about that are part of this. But I want you to think of this. Like if you're old like me, okay, so I'm 56. I'm a very transparent person. I grew up with the emergency contact list on the refrigerator. It's right there. Okay. You think now everything's digital. It's like, if you're going to leave anything on the refrigerator, consider having the magnet with these names on it of people to contact, right? Because if you are a single adult in a household and you are laying there on the floor, your kids may not be quite as adept at knowing who to call, right? If you're there, you don't need the list. If you're not there is when you need that list. So consider having those names and numbers out. A lot of times, and call it what it is. Sometimes you do not have the personal cell of your family primary care physician. Sometimes you do, depending on your relationship. But anyhow, if you have any of that sort of stuff, that's stuff that could be very helpful versus calling Baylor, Scott, and White and listening to several menus of things. It's like, no, really, I do need some help. And I need somebody fairly quickly. Some of the other contacts financial advisor. If you have a financial advisor in your life, then reach out. There's sometimes when healthcare, if you're looking at big bills, and especially if you're getting sticker shock on something, that's when you want to reach out and just say, hey, I'm seeing this. Does this sound right to you, right? We're in the money business, so we know these things. Insurance people, that's who you definitely want to talk to about. I'm not a big fan of insurance. You've heard me sit here and rail on insurance, but there are times when you need it. Again, that's a risk transfer, is you're paying a premium to transfer risk. That is something that sometimes needs to be considered. And then an elder care attorney, this was a new term to me, right? But elder abuse is a thing. Elder care is a thing. I've gone through some personal experiences recently that have kind of opened my eyes to some of the challenges at that stage of life that I really kind of can't appreciate until you see it firsthand. But certainly if you're into any legal situation or you're seeing anybody that's possibly a victim of abuse, you might want to consider an attorney in the space. I don't have a name for you. I will talk to our estate attorney and see if she has any recommendations. That's kind of the, oh no, you don't want that to happen, but certainly that person would be on your bench, if you will, if you needed it. Okay, let's talk about the stages of life. You start off, you're young, you're invincible. Yes, so was I at the time, and you know what? Nothing happened of note, right? Broken nose, who cares? Nothing major medical happened. Things can happen during that stage, but for the most part, they don't. You're going to work through you're on your parents until age 26 now. Other than that, whoever you work for is going to have some form of employer plan. You can go open market if you have to go on the ACA marketplace. I know this is being relooked and it's a political hot button, fun. We'll see how it all works out, but this is the way it is right now. However, the one power move you can make if you are in your 20s and you have access to a health savings account, you want to fund that, right? And you're like, Steve, you told me, oh my gosh, you literally told me a week ago, I need to save for a down payment on my house that I will never make. I'm going to need help for. You need to tell me to max out my retirement accounts. You tell me to max out my 401k. And now I have to max out my HSA. And yes, all that's true. Figured out. No. All of that is true. Those are competing priorities. But if you can get to the point where you can max out your HSA, it has the triple tax benefit. You get a break going in, it grows tax-free, and then it's not taxed on the back end. There's nothing else that mathematically qualifies anywhere near this, right? So consider if you have to ask your HR if you have access to it, and if they do, then do that. And we can invest those for you. This isn't a power play, money grab kind of thing, but we can put individual stocks into an HSA. And we do that for a handful of clients. And that allows you to, at the hands of a skilled investor, really increase the returns that you're getting over time versus putting it in an HSA and letting it sit in the money market, making 4%, right? Especially if you have time on your side because you're 18 to 40. Disability insurance, that kind of depends. There are different opinions out there. Obviously, your greatest asset is your future earning potential. We do have a brand new graduate in the room that's getting ready to kill it in the workforce. My kind of thought is, if nobody's counting on you, then I generally wouldn't get disability insurance, right? So there's life insurance. That's one thing. Disability is the other side of that. Is, if you get, just as an example, hit by a car and pass away, then if you don't have life insurance, if nobody's counting on you, it's kind of break even. Where if you disability insurance is a little bit different. That's why a lot of people push this hard. I think they push it hard usually because they sell insurance. But I do buy the idea of you could get into that same car accident, get disabled, and now not be able to work for the next 40 to 50 years, where you are still on somebody's tab, if you will, as far as paying for your life. So generally not a big fan. I've not ever once looked somebody in the eye and said, you need disability insurance. I do buy the argument. So if that's a fear you have or a risk that you perceive you have, and you would feel more comfortable passing that risk to an insurance company, then do so. Otherwise, I would say pass. Okay, life starts to get real when? About 40. One of my favorite phone calls are the folks that call me at 40, and they kind of do the, hey, probably need to talk about this investing stuff. And I'm like, yeah, probably. And I say it's probably time to do my favorite word called adulting. So a lot of things become real at 40, right? You're probably married, have some kids, maybe renegotiated that marriage. You never know where you are, but you have things going on in your life. So the health insurance strategy, generally you're going to be going through your employer again, with either PPO or HMO. We're not going to get into the details of that today, other than just showing you a slide. But at that point, you also need to entertain life insurance. So the way we do it at Anchor Star Wealth and in the financial planning world is when we sit down and we talk about planning, not investments, just go planning only. We do the empty chair scenario. So what if, let's just go around the room and what if our, middle child isn't here? Well, financially, that's not going to be a big disaster. What if mom's not here? It's like, well, disaster, right? There goes half of our income or all of our income or none of our, depending on what it is, but you also have the emotional impact. And, if you lose a spouse, could the other person still continue to work? You're like, yeah, of course I can. Well, I don't know about that. I don't know. Those are the real conversations you kind of need to have. Well, you mitigate that with life insurance, right? So I'm not here to sell you life insurance. I generally say if you're going to buy life insurance, buy the insurance and not the investment piece, right? Separate it. So, if you need to cover your family for 15 to 20 years for up to a certain amount, do it. If you get life insurance for free out of your workplace, maximize that. Sometimes they have cheaper rates too if you want to plus up. A lot of times they don't look at your health situation if you're getting it through work. So that might be a benefit for a lot of people. I was a pilot for a number of years, and getting life insurance is like, don't even bother asking. So it wasn't until after I was done flying that I could get life insurance. And then I got it really for the business, not even for our family situation. So reassess those needs. Health savings account is a retirement vehicle. Again, we talked about the tax savings in there, and we'll come back to here in a minute. The problem is you don't get to jam a whole lot of money into it. You're fairly limited as what you can put in. However, don't be aware of that when you transition to the 65 and up portion of your life, that you may need a couple $100,000 of healthcare in retirement. So, if everything's going great in your life and you made you're a millionaire in your 40s or early 50s, kind of those are the target kind of things, and everything stayed together where your wealth was continued to be able to grow for you, then yeah, a couple $100,000 in retirement isn't a big deal. However, if you're not on those goals, or we had to split up some money, or whatever reason led you to the case to where a couple $100,000 isn't exactly what you have laying around, then you could run into some issues in this last stage that we'll talk about. Well, the 65 and up stage. So here's it kind of talks. This is Fidelity. They do a study every year. They're like the top study as far as breaking out these costs. And they say, a 65-year-old retiring today, so in 2025, could spend $172,000 on healthcare and retirement. Okay. You have your premiums, or if you don't know that yet, as soon as you start speaking Social Security, you will know that you have premiums that you're going to pay to Medicare that come automatically out of your Social Security. So for your benefit, right? So government takes back the money they just gave you. And then you also have your out-of-pocket prescription drug costs. That's kind of a wild card. You don't know exactly what's going to happen there, but yeah, you're going to end up be paying for some drugs in retirement. So when I say, 172, I like to say $200,000. Just kind of think of that in your net worth of, if you scroll forward to the end of life and you're trying, there's some folks that'll say, I want to die with zero, right? So it's like, I'm going to try to time it. So I spend my last dollar in my, Ubering to the funeral, right? Well, it's your own funeral, so I guess you're not going to Uber, but covering your funeral expenses sort of thing. It's like you want to leave a buffer, right? And that buffer is the healthcare cost that you could run into later on. There's the two structures. We're not going to go into this differences, but certainly if you have questions here, then to reach out to your advisor. All right. The HSA itself, the triple advantage is you contribute, and it's tax deductible. So especially if you're in a high income job, and, go back to the question of, well, do I support retirement, a down payment for a house, my health, all these things that I'm supposed to be trying to fund? Well, you get a tax break for this one. You don't get a tax break for the down payment of your house, right? So tax deductible going in, it grows tax-free the whole time that's in there. So again, the longer you can keep it in there, the better. And then withdrawals, if you use it for a qualified medical expense, then it's tax-free on the other side. So it is literally, it's better than a IRA. It's better than a Roth. It's better than a 529. It's the best thing out there. So definitely maximize it. You say, okay, Steve, because I like to poke holes in your argument, and I know people do, and that's fine. I like it. Bring it on. What if I don't ever have any medical expenses? And I say, oh, it must be nice to be you. But so say you live the perfect life, never have any medical expenses. You still can use HSA money for other things. You just pay taxes on it. So it's kind of like if you have all this college savings money and your kid gets a scholarship, then you aren't penalized ever. You're just taxed on the gains. So same thing here. If you don't ever have any medical expenses, good job. Then you're going to be able to use this money to go buy your Ferrari, but you're going to pay taxes on the gains is all. So you're not penalized for having done it. Okay, here's the transition to age 65. There's some Medicare stuff in there. Again, I'm familiar but not fluent in all this stuff. I've helped my parents and in-laws through a lot of this stuff. But you will certainly, Medicare's at 65. It's going to happen. If you miss that or if you sleep through that, you're going to face all kinds of penalties. So don't let that one go by. Generally, if you're working still at 65, which is not uncommon, then there are some other options there to where you may not have to. But those are unique cases. Just think in your mind, there's life things when you turn 65, you better be doing signing up for some Medicare, and then you can see the different different letters down there. Okay, long-term care planning. Get this question asked a lot. So first of all, what is it, right? So if you are, long-term care is, hopefully in your life, it goes through the following path of you live alone, either with someone or by yourself until you're, around 80 to 90. I'm from Iowa. Literally in Iowa, you die in your own house. Nebraska's the same way, right? It's like they'll take me out of here when it's in a, in a body bag, if you will. But you can kind of live alone to a certain point. Then you need to go into some form of assisted living, which can turn into like a full-time care sort of situation. And those years are expensive. So, and honestly, you do, using my parents as an example, I mean, they're going to live longer if they're in a care environment, right? If they're checking on them every 2 hours, make sure somebody's not laying on the floor, those sorts of things can extend life versus just being in your house. But if you go into that type of situation, it's very expensive. So full transparency, Austin area, fairly nice facility, about $7,000 a month. You're like, $7,000 a month, which is of course what my parents said, right? When they had a mortgage payment, it was like $800 a month, and that was already a crisis, right? So to hear things like living cost of $7,000 a month can be a culture shock, especially to folks. But remember, that's why we also have this big pool of money, right? That we spend our whole lives growing and investing to get to the point where now that's money that we use taking care of ourselves in at the final stages, if you will. Family, all family dynamics are different. Literally every single one, complete snowflakes, right? You may have people that children, sisters, brothers, grandchildren that will come in and provide great care for you, or you may have no one, right? So you don't know about that. You take care of them when they're kids, and it's like, I'd like to remind my girls, it's like, don't forget to be nice to me when I can't do anything and I'm mean and grumpy and all that stuff. It's like, give me some credit for the good years, right? But the question becomes, should I get long-term care insurance? Well, everybody's situation is different, but generally I think about if you are either not anywhere where you need to be going into retirement, yes, you need it. If you are in between a certain range, then it's more personal preference. If it makes you more comfortable, reduces stress in your life, and you've got the cash flow to do it, then you should buy it. And then at some point, you're self-insured. So those words don't mean anything without numbers. So I would think of, like, right now, if I was sitting across from a client that had $500,000 or less, and they're in their early to mid 80s, and it's just like, yeah, at that point, yeah, you're in a situation where you might run out of insurance, or you might run out of money while you're in long-term care. Or you back that up to somebody that's maybe late 60s who's like, hey, I'm really worried about this because I only have $300K to my name. And it's just like, well, you've got that, that's good, but we need to now grow that, or you're going to end up kind of needing to buy this insurance because you would be financially destroyed if you had to pay all these bills, right? So there's the kind of folks, and there's an opinion there. It's more art than science as to when you want to sign up for this stuff, but it's expensive. And it has all kinds of, you have to, this for 6 months and then this payment, and you have to be able to navigate that. And it makes my brain hurt. And I actually do this stuff all the time. So that's how complicated it is. Self-insuring, where I say that kicks in, is around $2 million of net worth. If you have $2 million of net worth and you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, doesn't matter. Once you kind of get to that level, you have, in my opinion, enough of a safety net to where if you are hit with long-term care issues that starts to hit your money, then yeah, I think you're self-insured. You're just going to eat it at that point versus paying premiums. Again, you're paying premiums. You're paying more for what you're getting to pass risk. At that point, you can accept your own risk. That's an opinion. Did have a grandmother on my father's side who went into an assisted living later in life and lived to 102. And she did take all of the money that we thought was all the money in the world at the time, and it was zero at the end. I mean, she timed it like perfectly. But it was it's like, goodness, if people start living forever, who's got the chart that goes out to 110, right? And especially if we start doing some of the crazy stuff that we like to invest in, that like keep the brain alive, rebuild the body, okay. We're kind of in a whole new department there. But those are the types of things that you're kind of running the math for yourself. But my opinion, if you have $2 million, you're kind of made, if you will. Okay. Towards the end of it here, end of life and advanced planning. Again, I'm not an attorney, but we talk about this stuff all the time. You want to have your legal protections in place during your kind of working years, your 50s and 60s. You're kind of thinking trusts, wills, living trust, revocable trust, irrevocable trust, those sorts of things. As you get towards the end, though, you definitely want to have your healthcare stuff in place. Durable power of attorney who can make decisions on your behalf. You have to have HIPAA so your caregivers can share information about you. And then the last one I tacked on was DNR thoughts. So DNR stands for do not resuscitate. It is a very, it's not a great topic a lot of people want to talk about, but it is, especially, when you get up to your past your life expectancy, if you will, is if they find you unresponsive, i.e. you've coded out, passed away, unless you have a DNR in place, they do not resuscitate order. They're required to save your life. Right. So if a person is at the point to where they're like, hey, if I just happen to pass away, I do not want you to try and save me, then that's what the DNR does. So are you going to have that when you're in your 40s and 50s? Probably not. Right. Unless you have a severe medical condition that might drive that. But generally, if you get up into your 80s, and if somebody's certainly content with the life they've lived, these are personal discussions, letting them go ahead and pass in accordance with nature versus using modern medicine to resuscitate them to the tune of another $100,000 or $200,000. Personal decisions. There's ethical, moral pieces of that. You can peel all that back. Just saying that's a discussion that when you hear folks ask if you have a DNR, you need to have that out, and everybody there needs to know about it, because if somebody doesn't know about it, they're going to start the resuscitating process, whether you want it or not. So, okay, fun stuff to talk about, I know. All right, future of healthcare. Is it getting more expensive? Yes. Is it getting better? Yes, which is a double whammy, right? Because we're keeping people alive longer, but we're spending more and more money to do it. Fortunately, we have, we're no problem spending money that we don't necessarily have in this country, but can we do that forever? That's a whole nother conversation. But let's talk about the benefits of, telehealth. We've all gotten, COVID kind of, whenever you have a change in a system, it kind of disrupts it, right? So we went to COVID where you had telehealth, right? Where it became now very common to be able to reach out to your doctor and say, hey, I just really need a video conference, right? And kind of coming out of that, everybody went, yeah, that's all I really need a lot of the time is just the video conference. The same rash I always have. Yep, I've got it. I need the same medicine. Yep, talk about it, get the prescription and move forward. So that piece has become more mainstream, which is nice. Precision medicine and AI. Okay, yeah, now you're starting to get technology involved. I have no doubt that, accelerating diagnosis is going to be the case. It won't eliminate misdiagnosis, but certainly you can get to the answer quicker. Drug discoveries, that whole timeline is going to be accelerated, sort of thing. But again, all that has the net result of making us live longer, which is good for you and I as individuals. As a country, what if everybody lived 110? Sounds pretty expensive. If they were productive, that's great. But if we still convince people to retire at 65 and live to 110, It's a tough math problem. Okay. And then, yeah, costs and social securities, all kinds of things that are hinged upon a average life expectancy they fail miserably a lot of times when you don't challenge the assumptions. But then when you challenge the assumptions or the goalposts move, then you have a whole new set of problems on your hand. So stay tuned for the future of U.S. healthcare. Okay, so know what you have as far as your coverage. This does include life and disability coverage if those are things you have. So at least pull it out once a decade and look at it. That's kind of what I used. Ask your HR if they have an HSA. If so, look at try to prioritize dollars into the HSA. And the rest you kind of know. It's getting more expensive. And if you want to talk to anybody about this, reach out to your advisor. All right, that's what I have for the official presentation. There's the team. What sort of questions do we have?
So Steve, what if we don't have access to an HSA, or maybe we did when we were employed and then you don't have it?
Yeah. So the question is, what if we don't have an HSA? What do you do? Well, it's not great to give an answer. It was like, well, you're kind of hosed, right? But yeah, so who would fall into this category? Well, the entire U.S. military had pensions, so I'd not even heard of an HSA till I'm in my 40s. I was like, man, that sounds like a pretty good deal. How do I get one? And they're like, you can't. So it has to come through your employer and it has to come through the HR department with the administrator. So who doesn't have that? People that don't work either for firms that offer that or big firms who are definitely going to have it, or entrepreneurs, right? You go out and that's more and more of today's world, right? You're in your 20s and the attractiveness of sitting in the board meeting for, half of your 9 to 5 hours a day is like miserable, right? They are making money laterally doing several different things. You're not going to have something like that. So really you don't get the benefit of using that vehicle. So then you really, in my opinion, you have to aggressively try to build your net worth because one of the safety nets isn't there that you would normally have. I would not take a job to get an HSA, right? I'd rather figure it out on my own than go through that. But yeah, if you have it, take advantage of it. If you don't, then you do have to kind of bump up those numbers of safety net that you're going to have out there. All right. Any other questions? All right. We're clear here. Thanks so much for listening in, and we'll talk to you guys next time. You have a good one. Bye. It's okay to clap. Yeah, right? Should have clapped longer.